I hopped on so fast.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to see you again.
I know it's so good to see you. It's been forever.
I love your background.
Thank you. I love yours. I'm like, we're so fitting, aren't we?
Safari, themed, and I've got the polka dots. So
I love it. I love it. And you've got your tent. It's the best.
I'm just ready to go. It's a playroom.
How are your kids?
They're good. They're good. My in-laws are in right now, so they're getting them down to sleep for me right now, which is great.
Nice. Nice. You get a little break and you get to come hang out with us. And thank you.
Yes.
All right, so we have Cindy Scott with us. She is a registered dietitian who specializes in pediatrics, correct?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up here? I know you're also a lactation consultant.
Yeah, so I did pretty much a little bit of everything when I graduated. I tried, long-term care and food service and clinical dietetics and all that kind of stuff. And, I loved my role as a dietitian in those, different spheres. But once I had my little one and I realized there was so much lack of information, lack of evidence-based information available for moms and parents, it just really spurred me and became my passion. And so I completely just switched over to pediatric care. And I love what I do. I love helping instill like really good foundations for nutrition right from the start because it's so much easier when we have that set in stone at the beginning versus having to kind of backtrack later on. We'll always have ebbs and flows, but I really like to optimize the nutrition in the first few years of life.
Right, yeah, because the little ones are growing so rapidly, having those nutrients is vital.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about picky eaters, which
Hmm.
I am very excited because I think that most families struggle with
Hmm.
this, having toddlers. It is difficult for them to try the broccoli. So for having a picky eater, is it the taste? Is it the texture? What causes a toddler to decide, not going to do that today?
Yeah, well, I think it's just kind of their innate nature. So,
Mhm.
around the 12-month, 18-month mark, the term neophobia may be familiar to you, but it's just when our children become a little bit more skeptical of new things or things that they haven't seen in a while. And this is, not just food, it's anything. But we see it a lot because we have to feed our children 3 times a day. And so we see it present with food challenges more frequently than with other things. But so food neophobia is just a fear of new things. And so that's why it's normal. And it's also, there's an independence factor too, like the child wanting more say over what's going into his body and what he's being fed. So it's a little bit of behavioral as well as just like normal growing challenges. So picky eating, I don't really like to use that term unless the child really is a picky eater because all children are going to go through a stage of food preferences where they're not going to eat everything you put in front of them again, but there's tactics we can implement and do on a continuous basis to help go through that phase at a faster pace versus sometimes we're all super busy moms. We start having issues with our child not eating something, and so we just decide to feed them what we know they'll eat.
And
And
then you end up in the chicken nugget phase.
yes, yes, and
And
then
why is it
kind
chicken
of
nuggets? I just have to
yes,
ask, why
yeah.
chicken nuggets?
I don't. Is it salty? I don't know. Is it the
I'm like,
saltiness?
why?
It's the
They love chicken. I personally am not a chicken nugget fan, but like kids, chicken nuggets.
I want. I part of me wonders, is it because they get to dip it in ketchup, or I don't know.
I
Um,
never thought about yes.
know what because I mean protein, it's not like their bodies are craving tons of protein because the protein is like the least nutrient of concern really. Like there's like rarely ever a child I come across that has like less than optimal protein needs because their protein needs are so small, so it must be
Right.
the saltiness. I don't know.
Yeah, because even like I hand make my kids chicken nuggets, like when I make them, and they're not that great, but they love them. It's like chicken nugget night. So exciting. And I'm like, guys,
You're like,
not
could
that
be
great.
better, but okay.
I'm like, if this
Yeah,
makes you happy, go for it. And
yeah,
they don't
so
even touch the fries or anything. It's the nuggets. Something about them. And I was always wondering, why the chicken
What's
nuggets?
the magical potion in these chicken nuggets? If they came out with research on why our children crave chicken nuggets, I would love to see the data. But yeah, it could be a texture thing. Um, feeding disorders, not disorders, but like pediatric feeding disorders is what they're called, is becoming kind of more common right now, where it could be a sensory thing, it
Hmm.
could be a texture thing. And so, like, if you are really struggling with a picky eater and it's like they're eating like less than 10 foods,
So
um,
that's when a parent should be like, okay, I need some resources and help with like my child will only eat 10 things.
yeah, because I mean,
Okay.
it could be something else going on. I'm saying that they all go through this phase of neophobia, which they do, but some kiddos really do need extra support. Maybe it's because they had a lip or a tongue tie, and it's impacting the way that they can chew and swallow.
Yes.
Maybe they do have a lot of sensory issues and they don't like touching the food, and that's impacting them being comfortable enough to eat the food. So there are instances where, I would refer you to, make sure you're working with a pediatric dietitian, but also like a feeding therapist. So yeah, the picky eating phrase, we use it very generalized,
Hmm.
but there's not like a exact like way to diagnose it because it is relatively normal.
Right. And also, like, I think it's like kind of layman terms, and it's the bridge word for everything going on with our toddlers, as far as like every toddler is going to be a picky eater at some point. So don't freak out. But
Yeah.
like, if you're
Yes.
getting down to 10 foods,
Yeah.
then you can freak out a little bit.
Yeah, if meal times are super stressful for you, like
Yes.
that's what I always say. If it's like, even if maybe they can eat more foods, but like you're just struggling, I like it's always great to just get a second opinion. Oh, that's totally normal. Then you can go on your way. Do you know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
But yeah, I
And
definitely
gummy vitamins
always
aren't going to solve all your problems, right?
yes,
Like,
yes, yeah.
what are some main nutrients that we want to make sure that our toddlers are getting? Like, if we're going that picky eater phase and our toddlers are just like chicken nuggets and really fighting us on anything, what is something we should really focus on to make sure at least they're getting these items into their diet?
Yeah, I love that question because I feel like that's a super common question I get asked. Um, I want to preface it with like every nutrient is obviously important that we're making sure our kiddos are getting um, all that they need of. But I think calcium and vitamin D are obviously the top two front runners, just because, they're setting that foundation for like strong and healthy bones, also immunity with a vitamin D. Those are just some of the ones that they are the relative need. So like 700 milligrams of calcium is a lot of calcium. And if you're
Yeah.
not doing a milk, or your child's a really picky eater and is not doing any dairy, like those are the things I normally focus on with my clients, is the calcium and vitamin D as two of the most important ones. A lot of the other nutrients are really easy to get into a child's diet, and so they, even if you are dealing with a little bit of a picky eater, they're probably meeting their needs in some of the other things like fiber or carbohydrates or things like that, so I would say calcium and vitamin D are normally what I focus on.
Yes. And we did have a question. Is it
Yeah,
typical to see a toddler having 1 to 2 meals a day?
it could be. Toddlers growth decrease, like their growth rate decreases drastically after 12 months. So when we're used to like our 6 to 12-month old eating a lot of food and bigger portions, and then we switch over to this slower growth rate, their appetites do tend to decrease. And so maybe if they're eating, I would say probably I would want to see at least 2 meals.
Right.
Only eating one meal a day, that would make me a little uneasy, but it also depends on if they're getting snacks. Are they still
That's what I was
breast?
going to say. What if we
Yeah.
have a grazer?
Yeah.
Mhm.
If Are we still breastfeeding a lot? Like maybe
Mhm.
that child's still breastfeeding like 8 times a day. You never know. Are they really loving cow's milk? And so they're drinking, a large portion of their nutritional needs are coming from cow's milk. But yeah, if it maybe 2 meals a day, I would say could be on the normal side, but just kind of depends on other factors as well.
Yeah, and with the cow's milk, 20 ounces a day, correct?
So it's 16 to 24, but we
Okay.
kind of aim for that 20 ounces to be the maximum because we really do want um the majority of their nutritional intake to be coming from solid food at that age.
Right. Yeah, because a
Yeah.
lot of babies and kids are going to be like milk, 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 and then they're full on the milk and they're not eating their meals. And then that's when we as parents start to stress out.
Yeah, it's so many things. It's like the schedule, like when are we offering the milk? When are we offering the solid food? Are they too grumpy when they come to the meal to want to eat? So it's easier for them to drink. There's just so many factors that comes into feeding.
Right.
Yeah, looking at the bigger picture.
So with mealtime, what is something that as parents we should be doing when it comes to mealtime, especially if we're struggling with mealtime and it's stressing us out or stressing them out? Like, what should we generally be doing at mealtime?
Lower your expectation.
Okay.
Come to the table not expecting them to eat anything, so that if they do eat something, we're on a high versus a low. I think we want to make meal times fun and engaging. And sometimes when things are getting really stressful, us as parents or caregivers need to take the expectation off of the portion and just try to do like simple goals. Like, we're just going to get him to sit at the table with us for 10 minutes. He doesn't even have to touch the food, but we want to have a fun, engaging 10 minutes at the table. And once we get the child to, be okay with sitting at the table, then let's find some fun utensils. Let's just play with the food. Let's make it a sensory activity. Once we take the focus off the portion sizes, mealtime just becomes a lot calmer,
Yeah.
just a lot calmer. And then we can, as we get through those steps, then we can start focusing on them eating. And it normally it happens on their own. Once they find mealtimes fun, then they end up eating more. Yeah, I think it's just lower your expectations is what I would say.
And you gave me a tip years ago that to this day I swear by, and it's
Oh yeah.
portion size and the amount that you're giving your little ones.
Yeah.
Because I, as a mom, would like fill the plate and have this expectation that they should eat these large portions. But please share because this was like
Yeah.
my favorite tip about portions.
Yeah. Well, our portions for our child are always going to be huge. We're like, they need a
Cute.
ton. They have a busy
Yeah.
day.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I just always say start with like one or two pieces of whatever you're serving them. So if you're serving like spaghetti or something, like a spoonful of meat sauce and a couple
Yeah.
noodles,
Yeah.
just like
Not a full plate.
you have more, you have tons more. So think about how much more excited you're going to be when they finish that small portion, because it was at least they ate the small portion versus nothing. So if you give them a full plate of food, it's going to be very overwhelming to them. And they might have expectations on themselves that they need to eat all of that. And it could just be so overwhelming that they don't eat anything at all. So start with small portions. Consistently expose your child to a wide variety of foods, whether or not they eat them or not. Just keep putting them on the plate. I also really like family meal styles, is what I like to call it. So where you bring all the food in their individual containers to the table, and then let the child portion out what they want. And it just gets them more engaged in the actual mealtime process and can lead to them consuming more food. So I love that
Right.
too.
A little bit of independence and
Yeah.
excitement in that can
Mm-hmm.
drive them to actually want to consume the foods because they're deciding what they're putting on their plate, as well as how
Absolutely.
much, which is, I think, something we don't really think about. We just kind of portion it up as parents and they're like,
Yeah.
here you go, now eat it all.
Yes. I love
Yeah.
doing my son to this day. Like when I'm like, okay, you're serving your plate, which I don't do every night, but good reminder for me
You just
too.
have to kind of
I'm like,
like just deep breath and get through the mess because it
yeah,
is messy. But
yes,
yeah,
yeah,
everything could be cleaned up and your little one's
yeah,
eating a good meal opposed to
yeah.
chicken nuggets.
Yep, exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Yes. So what if your little one has a sweet tooth and you're finding that sweets are becoming an issue or they're
Um,
consuming a lot of sweets?
yeah, this is always a great question, and there's no like one way is the right way. There's a couple different like approaches to this. I really encourage like putting sweets on an even playing field with all the other foods. So if your child is becoming overly obsessed with sweets, we probably do need to go through a period where sweets are unrestricted. And that's really hard for, us parents to do, but we have to take the special like away from the sweets. We
Wow.
have to bring it down off the pedestal. So I would recommend serving, like, you know, if it's chocolate that they're craving or wanting, serving the chocolate alongside their meal. Having to do that, you know, pretty consistently until it's no longer something that they're craving or desiring or thriving, you know, like only wanting that, because
I
then
think that's
it's
a great tip for
power.
us. Like,
Oh my gosh, yeah, we do
if
that
I'm
for us too.
craving chocolate, opposed to
Yes,
like, oh, I'll just have it, like, just eat it
yeah,
with everything, and then you're
yes.
just not craving it.
And I also like the fact that when we're eating a sweet with, you know, a protein or a fiber, you know, or a fat, it's not going to give us that same like sugar rise than if we
Right.
were eating it on its own. So that's why I don't really like, you know, serving treats like outside of meal times and saving it for that special time, because it's better for us to be pairing it with something nutrient dense too. So not only is it good to like reduce that, you know, craving for it, but it's also great just like to reduce the glucose rise.
Oh, yes, yes. So, say we have a snacker and they're snacking all the time. How do we structure towards mealtime? If they're just like, I don't want to sit at the table, I'm not eating meals, and they just graze, how do you make that adjustment to actually sitting or even just having a meal?
Yeah, I would say you have to have a very strict rule, like mealtime schedule. So, and practice it every day. They're going to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the same time every day. They're going to get their snacks at the same time every day. If they don't eat during those set meal and snack times, then you can take that plate and you can save it for later. If they come asking you for a snack 30 minutes later, you can say, here, this is what I have for you. Do you want it? If you don't, that's fine. We'll have our next meal at this time. So I
That's
like doing
great,
that
saving it.
because it reduces the amount of meals you're cooking or prepping. And it takes, like, if they're holding out for like a packaged snack or something that they know they're going to get between meals, if we're not doing that, if we're just saving what they didn't eat, they're not going to hold out for anything, you know? So, but
Right.
really, like, making the meal times at a set time every day is really key. And some people will not offer another meal, or they won't even save the food and offer it. They'll just be like, I'm sorry, our next meal is at this time. So you could go either way.
Yeah, and that led into my next question because I know a lot of parents, we sometimes make them what they want. So there's so
Mhm.
many different meals that parents will have where it's like, so and so wants this and so and so wants this. Like, do you just say this is what we're eating and that's it? We're not having like you're having this and everybody else is having this as a family.
I always make sure there's one preferred food. So we're always serving a meal that has one food that we know that is a preferred food for them. Because it can be really scary to come to the meal table and have all these new foods that maybe they haven't seen for a few weeks or a few months, and nothing on there that they're comfortable eating. And so research shows they're less likely to eat anything versus if
I
they
love
have
that.
that food. So if they have their safe food there, they know that, okay, well, I might not be comfortable trying these other things, but I do have my safe food, so I have something I'm going to eat. And a lot of times that leads to them eating the other foods on their plate. Not all the time, but always have a preferred food so that you're also not worried about them leaving the table, eating zero, and being, you know, super hungry.
Yeah, they also like once the I jokingly say it's like the motor, once the motor starts, like they start
Yep.
eating, they kind of get
Yep.
over it. I mean, my 2-year-old's
Mm-hmm.
like that. She's
Yep.
kind of suspicious about what we're having. Give her something I know she's going to want. She'll start with that and then mindlessly move her way into
Yes,
the other things.
exactly. Exactly.
And we did have another question asking when to start peanut butter.
Yeah, so peanut butter should be started as soon as your child is showing all signs of readiness for solids. I recommend, you know, starting with a non-allergen food first, so we kind of know baseline of how they tolerate solid foods in general. And then once, you know, we see what their normal is, then we need to start introducing those allergens early and often, because that's what prevents, or that's what research shows prevents allergens the most right now.
And what are the allergens? I know peanut butter and egg. Are there others that parents
I'm
should
gonna
be?
remember them all. Okay,
What was it?
sesame.
Oh, there's
I don't know if I'm gonna
sorry.
remember them all. Sesame, soy, peanuts, tree nuts, fish
Wow.
and shellfish, dairy and wheat. Five, six, seven. Oh, I'm missing one. Eggs. There we go. There we go.
See, soy I didn't know about.
Yeah. So
That's
sesame
good.
is the most recent one. It just got added. So it used to be the top 8, and now it's the top 9 allergens.
So with sesame, would you give like a sesame seed or sesame oil? Like what would you do for that? I'm
So
so
sesame
curious.
is tahini. I always do tahini.
Oh,
Yeah, because it's like it's like doesn't have any sodium in it. It doesn't have any added sugar in it. You can spread it on toast. It's really easy.
okay. And then we have another question. It said
Yeah.
he's been on purees for 2 weeks. How long do you prefer should each stage be? So how long should each stage be for
Well,
purees?
so there really isn't. There's no research or anything that's saying that you have to have your kids on puree for even one day before you introduce solid food. So there's not a set amount of time between each stage of purees because they don't necessarily have to start on purees unless that's what you would like them to start on. But generally, I don't like leaving them on thin purees only for more than a week or two because we really want to prevent texture aversion. So
Wow.
we really want to start, introducing, if you're not ready for finger foods, then, do a thicker puree or a chunkier puree. We just definitely want to offer them a lot of exposure to a lot of different textures.
Wow. See, I did not know that about the thin purees. And I know baby led weaning, you can start 6 months, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can just start with that and you don't have to
Yeah.
do the whole puree thing, which I think a lot of it that's like newish to
It's very
parents now.
trendy.
It's very trendy.
But I think there's a lot of back and forth on if it's actually new or not, or if it's just something that we're coming back into
I
after.
think the second, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's something that's trending right now and it's been around. But I mean,
I think
as with
the
the
baby
first,
food the baby food company came in hot, making us think that, we had to do it one way. And now we're coming back around and being like, do we really? And
yeah,
it's trending.
it's like viral everywhere. But back to picky eaters. So I have a quick question about travel as far as the snackle box, which is trending. What are your thoughts?
Wait, I don't know what this is.
The snackle box?
No,
So you
I've
take a
never.
fishing tackle box and you put in like a million little snacks within it,
So
and
cool.
you travel with this fishing tackle box of snacks.
I'm all for it.
Okay. Because
Right.
right now it's pretty hot, and I'm wondering, like, should I be doing a snackle versus like little bags of snacks? Like, is it better? And
I don't,
you
I
know,
bet, I doubt there's anything better than one or the other, but I do like the fact that probably more parents are going to be more apt to offer different varieties if there's a lot of different boxes to fill. And I'm always about variety. So,
yeah,
even our kiddos can get stuck on these one or two snacks. But if we're, serving them all different kinds of snacks, we're probably providing different nutrients with the different types of food. So I mean, like, one of the strategies I use with picky eaters is a muffin pan, um, putting
oh,
different foods in each of the little cups and serving that at dinner. So it's kind of like a fun, engaging thing. And so that's kind of what this box kind of sounds like to me.
yeah.
Just like more sensory play, even if they're just touching the different things. So yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it.
That's awesome. Okay, yes, because for traveling, a lot of parents recommend Snackle because it keeps them entertained forever because they have all these different little
Yeah,
snacks and textures to try.
yeah.
So what are some like utensils or tools you could recommend that make it fun besides the muffin tray? Like, are there, I know they have like instruction utensils or, cups. Do you recommend open cup starting at a young age? What are things parents can kind of set their child up for success with?
Yeah, well, when we're in the toddler picky eating phase, I mean, you can find utensils and snack and plates based on any like popular character on TV. You could do like Paw Patrol or Spider-Man or whatever your kiddo is really interested in. So if you are struggling with mealtime, finding like a super fun plate and utensils to match, I always recommend could be a super easy way to get them to, enjoy coming to the table. They also have like food picks with different animals on that you can use to like poke in the food and play with it. They have chopsticks
That's
that
so
are
smart.
yeah, they have chopsticks that are made for toddlers. So like learning to do something during a mealtime, taking once again taking the focus off of them actually eating, but more on just engaging with the food. Um, There's a ton of cool utensils out there. We have one that's like little hands, and so he just tries to pick up things, the
I've
little
seen
hands.
those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're so fun. I mean, I
I
kind of
didn't know
like
what they were. I've
too.
seen them in the store and I'm like, those are really cute, but
Yeah,
didn't know what they were for. But that's so smart.
it's
Yeah, what
really
toddler wouldn't want to use them?
I know it's really just for like them to engage in the meal. So I have a lot of stuff like that linked on my Amazon list. And then for like cups, open cup or straw cup is generally what's recommended, starting out, just so that you don't have to deal with that transitioning away from sippy cups.
Yeah.
But there's, open
And
cup or
avoid the
straw cup.
360, I've heard. 360 cup is out.
So yeah, the 360 cup, I guess the speech therapist
It was
said
hot for a
that,
while, but
yeah,
I've heard
apparently
it's
it doesn't
not good.
support the same muscles that an open cup would.
Right.
So it's not, I don't think it's something that they're saying is harmful. It's just like
No,
not beneficial in the way an open cup or a straw cup would be. So yeah, I mean, I bought one for my first child.
same.
I had a 360 cup and I thought it was the same thing. And then I was like, oh, okay, no, it's not at all. And when you think about it, you are using completely different muscles because you have to like squeeze down and bite on it a little bit. So it is,
I
yeah.
had to teach my little guy when we got his
Mine did.
first.
Mine had
It
more.
took us like 2 days to
Yeah,
get him to drink out of this cup,
yeah,
but it was like the hot trend back then. So I was
it
like,
was.
"This is the best cup. All right, you're gonna learn to
Yes.
use it." And now I've heard it's on the outs. And straw and open cups are the best.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I wonder if it's better than the sippy cup though. I guess that would be my question. Like
yeah,
rather a 360 or a sippy cup. I don't know. Food for thought.
right. I know. Yeah, it's all what your child likes and getting them to eat and enjoy their meal and not make it stressful for
Yeah,
parents.
absolutely.
If you're stressing, I think that's the biggest point. If you're like anxious about breakfast and you're like waking up like, oh, what are they going to eat today? Or like, what can I serve them when they've had pancakes for 6 days straight? This is when you reach out. And you recommend going to your pediatrician first, or where should parents go to begin seeking help?
Yeah, some pediatricians will have a pediatric dietitian that they can refer to if you're more so struggling with like them only eating a few foods and you're really worried about their nutrition or if they're not gaining well. Um, but a lot of times the dietitian will refer out to a feeding therapist or will work in conjunction together, which is optimal. But feeding therapists, you can find a list of resources on that on feedingmatters.com. And so I think if you go to their website, they have a resource list of therapists that deal only with feeding in children. So I always encourage that as a resource. But your pediatrician should be able to refer you out.
And do you do virtual support as well?
I do if they're young. So I don't do picky eating above 3 years old because it kind of gets more difficult and there's different strategies we need to use as they get older. So I stick to less than 3 years old. I will help with that. Yes.
Awesome. So if you have a little one that's under 3, you're
Yeah.
struggling with feeding, please go follow Cindy and she can assist you. And you came out with a book as well recently, correct?
Yeah, we did. Yes. I have it right here. I always keep it on hand. It's focused on family meals from the start. So it's 100, more than 100 recipes, but it's 101 foods to introduce before one. But it's really just great for all ages because it's making food appropriate for your little ones and you don't have to cook a separate meal. So yeah, it's 101 before one is what it's called. It's really fun. I love it. I cook out of it because the meals are super simple. There's nothing complex in it, and I love that because I am not a complex cook. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a must have if you have little ones because it's just
yes,
easy, not a million ingredients needed,
yes,
and your little one's most likely to eat what's in there.
yes, yes. It's very easy, and I also like that it's just setting the stage for offering a variety so that we will have less, hopefully less picky eating
Right.
issues down the road.
Feeding success, you're setting yourself up for
Yeah,
success opposed to having a 2.5-year-old who's like, no. And
yeah,
then having a tantrum and you're like, fine, just eat the gummies.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So we have a question. How much water is a 6-month-old baby safe to have? If constipated, how much formula or water, what will help?
Okay, so for a 6-month-old baby, it's 4 to 8 ounces a day maximum, but it's actually not a necessity. So they don't have to have water, but 4 to 8 ounces is the maximum. Um, and if a baby is constipated, could anything other than formula or water help? Yeah, I mean, there's tons of foods that could help with constipation. If they're taking an iron supplement, that could be causing the constipation. So, is it something related to like their need to have more active but tummy time? There's like mobility. There's so many things. I actually have a huge constipation blog post on my website that kind of goes through the main causes of constipation and like solutions for it. So that might be a good resource for you.
Yeah, your blog is amazing. So anybody who has questions, just check out Cindy's blog because you have a lot of information there for parents.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I've learned so much as a mom of 2 toddlers, as far as feedings and using fun tools and make it a mealtime and stick to your schedule if you have a grazer. But making sure you get those core nutrients in a fun way, I think is crucial, and not forcing them to eat a huge plate of food. If they're not having fun, there's always the next meal.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Thank you for having me. I really
Oh my
appreciate it.
gosh. Thank you. We'd love to do it again sometime and we can talk about something else fun with feeding.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Take care.
All
Thank
right,
you.
bye.